You're listening to an AINC original podcast. We believe you don't have to do life without a compass. Let us be your guide on this amazing journey. Welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss.
Hello, and welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss. I'm your host, Kim Wardlow. Welcome today. We continue in November and with our focus on food. So that is fun. I have a guest today. Chris Peltz will be joining us. I just want to remind you that Colorado Gives Day is coming up in December, the first Tuesday, but you can actually schedule your donations right now on the Colorado Gives site. So you don't have to worry about it or try to remember on that Tuesday. You can schedule those in advance. So we always appreciate that. And let's just get started. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Chris started losing vision at age 10. You were diagnosed in 1984 with retinitis pigmentosa. And he hasn't had usable vision for about 15 years. But that hasn't kept him from doing the things he wants to do. And so Chris has the blind grilling experience, which encourages independence through accessible technology at the grill, in the kitchen, and in every other aspect of life, sharing experiences from a unique perspective in activities you would not expect the blind or visually impaired to be involved in. And Chris, I know grilling is not the only activity that you do that people might be surprised a blind person is doing. Do you want to just tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself, kind of a little bit more about your journey with blindness? And I know there's some hunting involved in that as well.
Yeah. So I grew up on a farm in central Missouri, and I experienced some difficulty, especially at night, losing my night vision. Of course, the normal things with RP, and went through several tests and was diagnosed with RP when I was 10 years old. And my dad gave me about a year to mope around the house to try and, just kind of go through that mourning process of, what's going to happen? Why is this happening to me kind of thing? And about a year to the day of my diagnosis, he grabbed the side of my bed at 4:30 in the morning and rolled me out of bed onto the floor and told me to get up and get out and get busy on the farm. Had to break ice for cows. So, because it's the middle of winter, had to get hay out, had other things to do before I went to school. And he said that I'd have to work twice as hard when I left his house, so I might as well start now. And they started that journey of really just pushing me to, figure out ways to get things done. And so, I lost 80% of my vision in the first 6 years. And went through that whole process of, having to find out how to use a cane, not wanting to use a cane, having, the embarrassment that I felt that, obviously we know now that was unnecessary, but, when you're that age, it's part of it, I think. And so I went through that process, and during the whole time, my parents, my brother, my friends, they were all, let's try to do as much as we can, maintaining all your likes and interests. And so hunting was a part of that. Cooking was a part of that. And so we just worked around, found workarounds and ways to get that done. And having someone beside me to cheer me on was just, a huge encouragement.
So, Chris, how did you decide what I know you've been cooking and grilling, a teenager at least at home.
Yeah.
But what what led you to start the blind grilling experience and the website and all the things on that?
So probably about 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, I wanted to document and leave, my kids some recipes as I was teaching them to cook as they were growing up, and trying to help them to realize, first of all, that, that they shouldn't let things that may happen to them stop them, right? If I can be an example for them. But I wanted to document our time together, cooking, grilling. And so we started videos and started throwing them up on YouTube. And then I started getting contacted by, certain blind, visually impaired individuals who were finding the channel and were commenting and just showing some appreciation for the encouragement that, someone who's blind or visually impaired was doing these types of things. And then there was a police officer who was injured on the line of duty. He actually was shot in the head. He lost one eye and suffered other vision loss and other issues. And at that time, I decided I want to transition what I'm doing from just the YouTube channel and some social media to more of a focus on encouraging those who've suffered vision loss, especially first responders, veterans, and some others. But really try to help them realize that even though something like this has happened, since I can't be a part of what they have done to protect us, either military or first responders, hopefully I could help them, if they've suffered that type of injury or vision loss, that to realize that they can still do some of the things they love to do before they had the vision loss. That they can still cook, they can still hunt, they can still do woodworking, they can still do whatever hobbies they enjoyed. There's still a way for them to do that, and so I really put that out there as an encouragement for them, and to even push myself to try new things as well. And so that's kind of how that really got rolling about 7 years ago.
Well, I think that's so important for individuals who've lost vision, who've had vision and lost vision, to be able to continue to do the things they love. So much changes that it's good to have some of those things that have brought you joy and be able to continue to do those things.
Yeah.
That category, they've been grilling, cooking for many years. They've lost vision. They're feeling maybe a little bit apprehensive. But I know we also have some younger folks who maybe are interested in grilling and haven't ever tried it. Situations that maybe are concerned about hot grills and safety issues, and how do you go about doing this in a way that is safe and that you come out with a successful dish that everybody wants to eat.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can be intimidating, right? When you can't see the fire, when you can't see that heat source that's coming up, and there's even with sighted folks, I've talked to several who have burnt arm hair and lost eyebrows, and it just gone through some disastrous cooks, and so that can definitely be intimidating for someone who's suffered vision loss or doesn't have that vision. And so there's a few things to help mitigate some of those fears. And one is doing indirect cooks, which basically means you're putting a barrier between your food and the fire. So using a grill that has a deflector or we call them plate setters on the big green egg that I use. But it basically is a something that allows the heat to come up and go around and then get to your food, but it doesn't allow the flames to come up and either burn your food or burn yourself while you're cooking. And to do things at a lower temp, especially with grilling. It doesn't always work when it comes to, inside baking, when it comes to breads and things. Sometimes you have to have a high heat. But when you're doing a high heat on a grill, that's where, usually you think of directly over the fire. But if you can get a grill that allows you to have that deflector, you can do, first of all, low temp cooks like 250 to 275 degrees. And rather than grilling burgers, for example, we'll do smokehouse burgers. When I'm trying to teach someone and get them used to working with the fire and with the grill, keeping that fire low and that temperature low helps build their confidence. It may take a little bit longer to cook the food, but it's still something that you can do. And then as your confidence is built, you can, bump up the heat, and then eventually you'll be able to remove that, that deflector and do more direct cooks.
Mm-hmm. What about the type of grill? A person who's been grilling probably has their favorite grill or grills. I know people who have multiple grills for sure of different types. And set up the way they like. But a person who knows it can be really tempting to get very fancy grills. I know there's grills that can be controlled, through your smartphone. And then there's obviously just that basic charcoal grill. How do you direct people who are just starting out?
Yeah, so it really depends on what they want to cook. If they are really wanting to do anything and everything as opposed to just, burgers, steaks, hot dogs, and brats, that can make a big difference in the type of grill that you want to look at. If you really want to do low and slow barbecue with briskets and pulled pork and ribs, then that can make a difference as well. So really starting out, figuring out what you want to do, and realistic, right? Some folks, I would love to be able to do some things, but will you, there's a lot of folks that, not even talking about vision loss, just sighted folks that don't even want to touch a brisket, right? They're intimidated by such a large cut of meat to begin with. So depending on what type of food you want, and then, budget's always going to come into play. For those who can, the ceramic grills are, I think, one of the best ways to go for those who are blind or visually impaired, because not only can you do everything in them, whether it's low and slow, long barbecue, big cuts of meat, or hot and fast breads, pizzas, grilling burgers and steaks. But because of their ceramic, because they are ceramic, you can actually touch the outside of the grill when it's hot. And while it may, depending on the temp, get very hot, so you don't want to leave your hand on it, it's not going to leave skin behind when you're feeling around your grill and touching it, like a metal grill might when it's extremely hot. But they are expensive grills. They have lifetime warranties. They're great options. But a lot of folks are, they just want to go to a big box store and get something simple like a Weber kettle. And those are fine, just knowing your surroundings, knowing where everything is, the handle, being familiar with, the grill itself, all the parts of the grill. Charcoal is my favorite. I think it's the best way to go, because you can still have the beauty of controlling the grill with certain accessible tools, but still have that charcoal flavor if you want. And you can do, like I said, with the deflectors, so you're not cooking directly over the heat. But there are other options like the pellet grills. Usually when you come into some of the technology built into grills like pellet grills, they're not accessible right out of the box. Usually you have to have some type of sighted assistance to help you get it connected to your Wi-Fi. Once that's done, there are some grills that the apps are completely inaccessible, that you cannot use them. Camp Chef, unfortunately, is one that, while they're great built, good quality product as far as the grill itself, the apps are completely inaccessible. Traeger, not necessarily a big fan of the grill themselves, but their apps are completely accessible, and so they work well. But there's a lot of maintenance required when it comes to the pellet grills. So that's something else that has to be, taken into consideration. Anytime you add electronics and technology, there's more things to go wrong as opposed to something simple, like dumping in charcoal and lighting it and running with it. So there's lots of variables there. It's hard to nail down one thing because so many people have different desires when it comes to what they want to grill or cook outside.
Mm-hmm. Do you use gas grills?
So yes, there's a couple of things with gas. I do use a flat top, so a griddle. I do have one that I use quite regularly for searing and doing vegetables, fried taters, different things like that. But gas grills are a good option because you can, it's just turn knobs, you can get them set, you can pretty much hear the flame, whether it's high or low. And so you can make some adjustments there. And they're a good option for, fast, easy cooks. Usually people are pretty familiar, with, using gas grills. They are a little bit more limiting when it comes to the low and slow barbecues. While you can do ribs, you really aren't going to find someone doing briskets or pulled pork for 8 hours on a gas grill. So, but they are a good option if you're just doing steaks, if you're just doing burgers, brats, or some vegetables, things like that. They definitely can be a really good grill for someone, especially if you add some technology, such as accessible meat probes, or other, things that allow you to monitor your temp so you can dial in, the flame on those gas grills.
Don't use tongs. I think we frequently think of tongs as one of the primary grilling tools, but you don't do that.
Right.
And could you just tell folks why and what you do instead? Yeah.
So usually with tongs, people find themselves chasing things rolling around on the grill or wondering, did they get a good hold of it? Feeling the pressure that you're squeezing something. I just don't like, I'm just not comfortable using tongs for as long as I've been doing this. It was just one of those frustrating tools that I couldn't wait to find another way to do it. Well, once I got doing competitions and learning more from a lot of the barbecuers, just in the competition and in restaurants, I found out they were using gloves. They were using these really thin cotton liner gloves, and then they put a nitrile glove over the top of that. And that allowed them just to reach in and grab food. So they're grabbing pork butts, they're grabbing briskets, and pulling them off the smoker to wrap them. And that allowed them, to grab large cuts of meat. Well, I thought, why couldn't I grab, burgers? Why couldn't I grab steaks the same way? And so for about 5-6 years now, that's what I've been doing. I haven't used tongs, in years because I've been able to, put on a pair of just a really, a thin cotton liner glove that you can buy at any hardware store, and then a nitrile glove that allows that cotton glove. Basically, it creates a waterproof barrier, because if you grab something hot and with moisture with just a cotton glove, that that moisture will soak through. You will burn yourself with the cotton glove. But once you put that nitrile glove over it, that creates that moisture barrier, and the cotton adds the heat resistance that gives you enough time to grab sometimes hot pans, but definitely hot food, so you can wrap it, you can move it around, and plus you have the dexterity of your fingers, all right, and you have that tactile feedback from the things on the grill, directly to your fingers without having to use something like tongs or even a spatula for that matter, and trying to flip burgers. Did you get completely under it? I'll just reach up and grab burgers and turn them over with my hands. So that's something that I recommend people looking into, and using gloves instead of tongs or even spatula.
That's a great tip. Do you have other to keep track if you have multiple burgers or hot dogs, or maybe you're doing something like shrimp, you're trying to keep track, have I turned all of them, or something round like a brat, is it getting turned, or am I turning it and it's rolling right back over? Yeah.
It's really easy to lose track of, especially if you're doing more than just two or three, whether it's a burger, whether it's a hot dog. I mean, you can lose track of things on the grill really quick and not know, did I turn it? Did I not turn it? With hot dogs, I use a skewer. I'll take it's a flat metal skewer that I run through the ends of hot dogs, not long ways, but perpendicular to the hot dog at one end. And so I can fit 6, 7, 8 hot dogs on one skewer. And when I set those on the grill, they'll grill that one side. And then when it's time to, what you would think typically of rolling them, I'll put on a cotton liner glove, I'll grab that skewer, and I'll turn it almost like turning a page in a book, and it'll flip those hot dogs all in one motion, and I get all the hot dogs flipped at one time, and that works really well, for not only making sure and knowing that you've got the hot dogs flipped, but they don't roll away from you, and because they're on that skewer. Other little things like fish baskets work really well, because you can actually cook burgers in fish baskets, so that, or even steaks as far as that goes. But you can put those in a fish basket, and then, after a certain period of time, or if you have a probe and you're keeping track of your temp, when you go to flip them, you just grab the fish basket and you flip that one thing, and you flipped, 4 or 5 burgers all at once. And so you've got them flipped and turned over, and you don't have to guess or wonder, did I miss one? Or, they're all right there inside that, so you're able to do that. There are grill baskets and other things that you can use. Some are really great and work well. Others, you got to be careful whether or not the handle is too long for your grill. So there's lots of things you need to take into consideration. But overall, baskets, skewers, those types of things can work really well. Skillets, cast iron skillets are wonderful tools using out on the grill. That type of thing to keep, whether it's shrimp or, something else that might be small and fall through a grill grate, things like that. Griddles can come in really handy on the grill to give a solid flat surface, so things don't fall through the grate. Something like that can work really well.
Do you have a favorite food that you like to grill?
Brisket is definitely one of my go-tos. I love doing brisket. The competitions, some catering that I've done in times past, that's usually what everyone's requesting is definitely the brisket. But I'm definitely a beef over pork eater. If I don't have venison, then beef is my go-to for sure. But brisket's probably my favorite, along with steaks. But I do love shrimp. I love salmon. Tuna steaks, different things like that. I love food. That's why I do this. So it's hard to nail down one particular thing, but I definitely definitely gravitate towards beef most of the time.
Yeah, well, and obviously being a hunter, you're grilling things that you've hunted and that meat as well. We all think about meat, maybe even vegetables, but you can put things on a grill that we might think, well, you need to put that in the oven.
Yeah.
Could you just tell folks a little bit about the whole range of things that they could be grilling?
Yeah. Some of our favorite, even on our website, at our blind grilling website, we have recipes for banana bread. We have recipes for a blueberry cheesecake dumpling, for blackberry cobbler, which, in fact, I just used that recipe, a few weeks ago to make a peach cobbler, and did it on the grill. Put it in a cast iron skillet, put it on the grill, and cook it there, and that turns out amazing. Apple pie, and what's great about when it comes to desserts, you can actually pick the kind of wood, so if you're doing an apple pie, add apple wood to your charcoal and, get some of that extra little bit of hint of, apple smoke. Peach pie, peach cobbler, we'll do peach wood. With the banana bread, we'll do pecans because we'll top it with candied pecans. And so we'll use a pecan wood for that. So those are some things that we do. We do a lot of pizzas. We do a lot of breads, pies, cakes, all of those things we're doing out on the grill. I challenged my wife years ago and told her, anything you can cook inside, I can do outside. And she's held me up to that. She loves it because she doesn't have to clean up the kitchen because everything's outside. And the only thing that I haven't really done well at is cookies. Peanut butter cookies, actually, not long ago was what I did okay with, but the chocolate chip cookie, I just can't quite get the cookies down. But other than that, I've been absolutely successful on the grill. And we try to get pretty creative sometimes. I know right now a lot of people are, they think about campfire s'mores, and doing the marshmallows and the chocolate bars and the graham crackers. And we'll actually take an ice cream cone and we'll put it in a jalapeno popper holder that holds your jalapenos upright. But we'll put the ice cream cone in that and use that as a stand. And we'll put chocolate and marshmallows inside that cone and stick it on the grill and smoke that until, those marshmallows and that chocolate has kind of melted and the marshmallow on top starts to get that brown crust happening. And it's a great smoked kind of s'more that you can hold and, eat in a cone. So we do all kinds of things like that, whether it's vegetables, stuffed apples. I know that's something people think about in the fall, doing candied apples. We do a stuffed apple where you core it and we'll fill it with either caramel or like a cream cheese. And then I'll wrap it in a cinnamon roll, canned cinnamon roll, take and wrap that apple up with that and throw it on the smoker. Just all kinds of things like that. We try to get real creative and do things that just kind of wow folks, especially if we're doing competitions, but sometimes just having fun out in the backyard and thinking, I wonder what this would taste like. I wonder what this would, how this would work. sometimes we have epic fails, but most of the time it's at the very least edible, and usually we just have a fun time doing it.
Well, let's talk turkey for a minute.
Yeah.
We're getting near Thanksgiving. It's coming up. What if folks are thinking about maybe instead of putting that turkey in the oven, I'll try putting that turkey on the grill?
Yeah, that's I highly recommend smoking a turkey if you have the means to do it. It's our favorite way. We usually do a fried turkey, but smoked turkey is absolutely my favorite. And there are a few ways of doing it. If it's your first time doing it, I basically would just take everything that you think from the oven, as far as your temp, let's say 350 degrees, and do it the same way. If it's your first time, if you've done that a few times and you want to lower the temp to 275, 300 degrees, that's fine. But probably my favorite prep when it comes to a turkey, there's a few really good keys to make sure you're going to have great results. First of all, obviously make sure you if you've bought a frozen turkey, make sure it's completely thawed. Take it out several days ahead of time, probably about 4 days before you're going to cook. Make sure it's out in your refrigerator thawing out. The night before you're going to cook it, get it completely out of the package and leave it in your refrigerator to air out and basically dry the skin out is what you're doing. That gives you a nice crispy skin on the smoker. A lot of folks think, well, the skin turns out rubbery or, it's not a good bite through type skin. That's one reason why they don't like smoked turkeys. And usually they haven't done the proper prep. So if you leave it in the fridge overnight, you can inject seasonings into the meat and then leave it in the fridge overnight, completely uncovered, and let that skin dry out. And before you put it on the smoker, that is really key. I do recommend if you can get a fresh turkey rather than a frozen. Especially if you're going to brine. Some people like to brine their turkey for 12 to 24 hours. And if you're going to put a turkey in a wet brine, that works great. It's really good for infusing flavor. But some folks think, well, it's always too salty. Every time I do it, it's too salty. And that's usually because they've used a frozen turkey that they then put in a salt brine. Well, when they freeze turkeys, they actually inject those turkeys with a saltwater solution to plump them up, and they flash freeze them so that they have this really big, beautiful shape to them, and they feel nice and plump. And so when you're thawing them out, it's almost like they're in a salt brine already. And so if you brine them in a brine that has a heavy salt a ratio to it, then your turkey is going to be it's just extremely salty. And so either cut back the amount of salt or just don't use a frozen turkey to brine. But I find really just injecting, finding a good sauce, a good injection marinade that you can inject into the turkey is probably my favorite way of doing it. But really the key for me doing that is making sure you leave that turkey in the fridge overnight to dry the skin out, to get a crispy skin and the meat's still juicy. Another way to make sure you get a crispy skin, and you're some folks think it's crazy, but actually that night when you put it in the fridge, rub a little bit of mayonnaise on that skin. It will not add flavor. Even if you don't like mayo, don't worry about that. It's not going to do anything to flavor, but it'll help crisp the skin when you cook it, and it'll act as a binder. Now, and I did say mayo, not mustard. Mayo. It does work as a binder as well, but it'll help crisp up that skin before you cook it. as well. And duck fat will do the same thing. Duck fat spray works wonders when it comes to not only as a binder, but also helping crisp up that skin when you're putting a turkey out on the smoker.
I'm more of a mayonnaise fan than a Miracle Whip. So that's a great tip. And I know you said you use the duck fat, and that I could see, similar people put butter or different things. So
yeah,
I could see that. Well, those are some great tips. And it sounds like if you had enough, grill space or if you had multiple grills, you could be doing your turkey and your pumpkin pie.
Yeah. Pumpkin pie is amazing on the grill. It really is. It just, that little bit of smoke flavor, just sends it over the top. It's just awesome. And do it, some folks, if you think about it this year, if you get a chance to put an entire pumpkin on the smoker, cut the top off and smoke the entire pumpkin, and I think you'll like it. I think you'd be surprised at how well that'll turn out.
And then make your pie. That sounds really good too.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you have talked a bit about some different tools and thermometer. For those interested in that, I know Jonathan and Evan are planning to have you back on Blind Level Tech to talk more about technology and grilling and cooking. But also, we touched on it, you still hunt.
Yeah.
And that may surprise people, but you have ways of talking with them a bit about that as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to that. And yeah, I still whitetail turkey hunt here in Missouri. I've hunted out in Colorado, up in northwest Colorado near Craig and Maybell, and just done the elk, antelope, mule deer, and yeah, there are ways of doing it. I use a red dot scope and have someone help line up the shot from back behind me, looking over my shoulder through the scope, and let me know when I've got the shot lined up, and tell me when to pull the trigger. And definitely have been after elk during the rut, and it's as well as when they're all herded up in late winter, or at least late in the year. And so it's a lot of fun. I enjoy being out in the woods. I love fishing and hunting. And for those who want to do that type of thing, definitely there are ways to do it. We talk a little bit about it on the Blind Grilling podcast as well, but that's something I'm looking forward to talking to Jonathan and Evan about, definitely, because I think a lot of folks think either they can't do it anymore or they never would be able to do it, and that's just not the case. There are ways, especially when you have a good support group, good friends and family that are there and willing to help you. Use those things that the adaptive tools that are available for you, so that you can get that done. It's a lot of fun, and just the accomplishment, the sense of accomplishment that you can get, when you take on such a task is just phenomenal. I love it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and being with us today. What are the best ways for people to find you? I know, obviously, we've talked about your website, the Blind Grilling Experience.
Yeah. So the website, blindgrilling.com, and of course the podcast, Blind Grilling Experience. But if you search for Blind Grilling, you will find us, youtube.com/Blind Grilling, facebook.com/Blind Grilling, Instagram @Blind Grilling. I mean, we're all over the social medias, and really putting a lot of effort into the podcast right now. But there's a lot of videos going back several years with various cooks. and talking about tools, and technology, accessible meat probes, which I think is really key when it comes to cooking. For those who are blind or visually impaired, having, a good solid meat probe that's completely accessible. So those types of things are all talked about on our social media and website.
Great. Well, Chris, thanks again. We look forward to hearing more from you on Blind Level Tech.
Hey, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Navigating Life with Vision Loss. Wanted to draw your attention to Colorado Gives Day coming up on December 5th, so make sure you get those donations in and on time. We're so thankful that you have chosen to give your hard-earned dollars to a nonprofit, so we thank you so much for that. Tune in next week as Kim joins with Penny Melville Brown from all the way across the pond. It's going to be a fantastic episode. We hope this show has helped you navigate your life with vision loss.